We're here at the 2018 Women's March, where behind me you'll see a number of pro-life protesters out here with, in some cases, very graphic signs. In front of them, you'll see a lot of Planned Parenthood and abortion supporters trying to block those signs from being seen. So we decided to catch up with some of these pro-choice advocates and ask more about their opinions on this subject.
I'm here because this is a women's march. It's a march for women's rights. Among those rights is the right to an abortion.
Their rally was yesterday. I didn't stand in front of their signs yesterday.
So do you support any limits on abortions?
I believe that's between a woman and her doctor, not the government.
I think that's a super complicated question. Do I believe in any limit? Sure. Yes.
I think our current system is fine the way it is. 90% of abortions occur in the first trimester, and the majority of abortions that occur in the second and third trimester are medically necessary.
I don't think that medical procedures should be determined by legislators.
Do you know where you would limit it?
I think it's a really complicated question. So, for instance, I think it should be performed by somebody who's licensed to perform it. I think it should be done by a professional. So, I mean, that's a limit on abortion, right?
So no limits.
Medical procedures should not be determined by legislators. Family decisions and medical decisions should be made between families and doctors.
What about the decision to abort children because they have Down syndrome, as they've been doing in Iceland? Do you support that?
I'm a special ed teacher, so that isn't something I personally support, but again, it's not my choice. As long as it's not my choice, I refuse to support any legislation that's going to hinder a woman's right to choose.
I think that that's a decision for a family and a medical professional to make, not a legislator.
I mean, ultimately, I support you doing what you choose for your body and your family. I think what's worse than an abortion is a child that is not cared for. And I think our foster system is really overwhelmed, and adoption is not always going to give that child a great life. And in fact, a lot of kids in the foster system are abused and neglected.
Well, so I think that's the result of a lot of individual choices that were made. So to the extent that that's true, right? If that's why there's no Down syndrome anymore, I support each of the individual people's rights who made that choice.
But does the abortion culture worry you ever, as someone who does work with children with Down syndrome, that in Iceland there's basically no children left with Down syndrome because the abortion culture has just exploded and everybody's choosing to abort them simply for that reason?
I would say that the proper response to that is to give education as far as what exactly Down syndrome is and the treatment options for it. There are lesson plans, there are individualized education plans. And with that kind of information, maybe Down syndrome won't be seen as such a desperately bad thing.
And so, whether that's okay in the big picture, I think is less important than the question of the individual right? And so I support each of the women that made that decision. So, whatever the consequence of that was.